You can study, you can learn, you can start working, but once you get married, it depends on what your in-laws are okay with. That's actually the problem.
Women participation in the workforce, it's amongst the worst in India.
She's expected to do her working day plus be the daughter and the daughter-in-law, the mother. It leads to burnout. But women deal with a lot at workplaces as well. We had a very large multinational client and they said, we want to hire women. They didn't have a women's washroom. That woman had to then go almost a 7-8 minute walk to just get to the washroom and come back.
What do organizations get wrong about women participation?
Organizations that don't take care of posh lose women at the middle level.
Any employee's most productive age is when women drop out.
And then come back and very often find their jobs are no longer there.
But there is a ray of hope for women in CXO positions.
So,
Today, I am very excited to welcome on the show Toral Patel, who's managing partner of Accord India. Accord India is a leadership recruitment firm. We are going to get an absolute ringside view on what employment for women in India looks like. What does succession planning mean for Indian companies? And of course, Toral's own journey. We keep hearing about women participation in the workforce and how globally it's amongst the worst in India. Yeah. And why do you think that is?
that's a very, very broad topic and
Yes, it
question
is.
that you've
It is.
started with.
Yes.
But let me try and answer that.
Yeah.
So I think women in the workplace is an issue all over the world.
Sure.
And India is no exception on that front. I think there are multiple reasons or factors that play a part. What we've seen is traditionally you will have today's newspaper talked of one of the IIMs having a more than 50% cohort of women in the incoming batch.
That is incredible.
And this is their second year of that. So obviously...
But, when I was at the IIM, out of 96 students, 6 were females.
Well,
that was the ratio.
Well, I was talking to a friend who said she was one of 3 in her engineering class.
Imagine, yeah.
And it led to a lot of interesting stories, but
Of
that's
course.
for another day.
Yeah.
But today what we're seeing is there are many more women who are getting educated, who are even starting out in the workforce. The real issue comes at certain years of their life when women, for a lot of reasons, mostly family related, take a back seat in their career and prioritize or focus family situations. And some of them continue to work, but a lot of them actually drop out, which leads us to a situation where there are plenty of women in the junior levels of most organizations. But
Okay.
as you progress, you will find fewer and fewer women because they've dropped out along the way. Why does this happen? I think there are 2 parts to this story. One is the workforce or the workplace and policies and regulations and things that organizations do to either try and keep women in the workplace or they don't do, which drive them away. The other equally important is the cultural side of it. In India today, women are blessed that they have more of a support system in terms of family,
I
in
agree.
terms of staff, in terms of, all kinds of things. But the cultural ask is even higher in India than it is in other parts.
And what do you mean by cultural ask?
So a cultural ask will be that the woman is still expected to do a full day's work and come back and do another full day's work at home.
Yes.
She's still expected to be the daughter and the daughter-in-law, the mother. And these are all full-time roles
Of course.
in themselves.
Yes.
But she's expected to do her working day plus all of these roles. sometimes, more often than not, it leads to burnout. And that's where women sort of have to make that choice. Sometimes they're not given a choice at all. A lot of women, when they're younger, will get told, okay, you can study, you can learn, you can start working, but once you get married, it depends on what your in-laws are okay with.
I've heard the word allowed very often.
I try not to use that word. It sets me off completely.
I know.
Yes.
It's a very triggering word.
Yes.
Allowed.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think, a lot of the issues are there. There are many women who also are employed or are in the workplace, but are choosing to take jobs that can get them home by 5 o'clock so that they can go home and cook the dinner and do all the other things that they have to do at home.
Of course.
They're choosing to do gig working or flexi working so that they can balance the two worlds that they have to operate. So it's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to manage both. Organizations can also make it difficult. So today there's a lot more awareness. There's a lot more regulation. There are posh committees. There was the whole Me Too scandal, of course, which brought to the fore things that used to happen. But women deal with a lot at workplaces as well. So, to find that perfect combination of a supportive family environment
Yeah.
and an organization that truly walks the talk on gender equality, on making it a safe environment, etc., is a tough one. And which is where you still see that gap not really reducing.
It's just a narrative that, if a woman, I just like 2 minutes ago, I heard a man say that women are given this concession of going early, whereas men are not given that concession ever.
So I'd flip it on its head.
Yeah.
Men are given the concession to come home, kick their shoes off, take the remote in their hand, switch on the TV and say, chai leke aao.
Correct.
When are women given that concession?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think, the reality is till the cultural side doesn't catch up, till it doesn't become a little more equal in terms of the expectation of what the woman is expected to do at home. Till then, I think women probably will need a little bit of concession because most women I know actually work harder in the hours they are at work because they're constantly trying to prove themselves
Yeah.
to be sort of better or equal or whatever words you want to use. So I don't really think it's a concession in the same way. But if they do bring that up, by all means, remove the concessions at home and let these concessions get removed.
Let the equalizer happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, what do organizations get wrong about women participation?
As a managing partner of an executive search firm, I obviously deal with roles that are at the leadership level.
Yes.
So I'm going to talk a little bit more from that perspective than the bottom end of the pyramid.
Sure.
The government created a regulation where you needed to have a woman board director, right?
Yeah.
And this was done very clearly to encourage more women on boards, etc., etc.
Yes.
Very, very good thing. It kind of forced a lot of organizations to think about it for the first time. However, I think what maybe organizations could do better, and I've seen some do it very well, instead of bringing one new woman board director, bring two. Because what happens is the woman board director very often gets drowned out
By all the men.
by all the men, right? So that's something that I think organizations need to look at, that when you are making that change, do you expect that one woman to become the lone crusader for the organization?
Absolutely. That's a very good point.
So,
that's a very good point.
Or do you make it easier
Yeah.
for those voices to be heard? Do
Yeah.
you genuinely believe as an organization that there is value in having women in leadership in the organization? If so, you will find ways to bring more in. Organizations that don't take care of POSH and other similar exercises definitely lose women at the middle level, because that's something that creates a lot of chaos in women's lives. In the good old days, it used to be issues like, I remember we had a very large multinational client and they said, we want to hire women. So I said, wonderful, music to our ears. And they went ahead and they hired a woman. And this was at an office which was with their factory. The office and factory were combined.
Right.
They didn't have a women's washroom. The only women's washroom was at the other end of the office. Now, it's a very small thing.
Yeah.
And I'm talking of obviously many years ago, and this has changed.
Yeah.
But that woman had to then go across the office, which was almost a 7-8 minute walk, to just get to the washroom and come back, right? Not the most conducive situation. So it's a lot of small things and a few of the bigger things that organizations can do. Many organizations have started having mentors for women.
Right.
And I think that's a very
I heard
interesting,
that, yes.
very, very interesting thing to do. They typically will have senior women in the organization mentoring some of the younger women. And it makes such a difference, right?
Right.
You have organizations like Unilever who made it a mandate that if there were 2 equal candidates for a role, for a promotion internally, the priority would be given to the woman. Now, it took...
That would create a lot of resentment also.
It did.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I did bring it up with the then HR director in India.
Yeah.
And she said, well, it's about time men got a taste of what women have dealt with for so many, many years. So, but the truth of the matter is today they have a woman CEO in
Yes,
India,
they do.
which
Yeah.
is incredible, right? So
First time ever.
First time ever. Then A, she will hopefully lead it from the front. B, she will be inspiration enough for a lot of the people down the line to stick it out through the tougher years.
Yeah. I
'Cause
mean,
there's
it's
hope.
a bit of an irony that, an employee, any employee is most productive. Age is when women drop out. When they can contribute to the organization, to the country,
Yeah.
that's when they are expected to just step back and
Unfortunately, the biological clock and the career clock are always at odds.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, that the age when they could or should be making strides in their career is also
Yeah.
the age they're having children and then dealing with, bringing up children, dealing with accusations of how can you leave your children at home without a parent present,
I
etc.,
know.
etc.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, not a parent present.
Mom
without
present.
mom present.
Mom present. Yes.
So yes, that is one of the challenges, and some choose not to have kids. Some choose to have them early so that they're older by the time they hit those years, and some choose to just power through that phase of their career. You
So-
take a sidestep in your career for a year or two to a slightly softer role and come back into a more hard-hitting role after that.
Coming to this, you have spoken about something called maternity gap, right?
Yes.
What is that? What do you mean by that?
Most dropouts of women in the workforce happen around the maternity and the child rearing aspect. And I think, therefore, for people, the maternity gap is when women will take time off to go and have a child and then come back and very often find their jobs are no longer there.
Yeah.
And they have to pick up the threads and move forward post that. And a lot of women drop out at that point. So that's where it happens. Now, the government did a great thing. They made it mandatory that companies have to offer maternity leave, paid leave, etc.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes it boomerangs.
In what sense?
So companies actually have said, well, if I hire a woman and she takes off for 6 months, I'm paying someone for 6 months of no use to my company, right? So is it better that I don't hire a woman to start with? Not looking at the fact that post that 6 months, you're actually going to have very smart woman who will come back and be able to take that organization forward. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg there. That what do companies do? Where do they see the value? And therefore, what decisions do they take? There are situations where women take the maternity leave and then choose not to work thereafter, which also doesn't help the cause, but
Or choose to switch.
or choose to switch. Absolutely.
So fine, get reasons not to have somebody switch sides.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's
It's
up
not
to
that
the,
men don't up and leave.
Exactly. But it's not at a particular defining moment of their personal life,
Yeah.
and hence it doesn't get the same
Mention.
In fact,
Yeah.
what we see is women employees are actually more loyal. They stick around for longer in jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, this is more anecdotal. I won't say there's any definitive research, but we see it all the time. That
Okay.
women employees who stick with the workplace actually have longer stints than a lot of men employees who will move jobs much faster.
There you go.
So, yeah.
If we talk about women in, taking off when they have families and, circumstances do not sort of push them into continuing with their careers.
Yeah.
Is that just a euphemism? What I mean to say is that just a euphemism for saying she's gone off the employment treadmill?
So I think it depends what they choose to do. Like with any job, there are some industries and careers that require, let's say, more feet on the street activity, more travel, more working, let's say, rural areas, all kinds of things. And there are some that may or may not require that. Now, you may have a woman who goes into social work, and today the not-for-profit sector is a booming sector, right, with a lot of career opportunity in it. Or they may go into education and start off as a teacher, and today there's no dearth of roles in the education sector. It's growing by leaps and bounds. So it depends on what they end up doing. But if they go, let's say, off the corporate track and then want to come back to the corporate track 10 years later, it is that much harder, obviously. There are career trajectories that they can follow. There are things that they can do and take it forward if they want to, or if they are willing to stick it out. No job is easy in today's world. No job is something where, I'll work for an hour or two when I want to. That's not a job.
Yeah, that's not a job. Yeah.
That's a hobby. And hey, I think men and women should have that option if they can afford it. Why not? But if you want to do a serious job today, if you want to get ahead, then it requires tenacity. It requires you to stick around. It requires you to put in the work to get the results.
Are there women in CXO positions or C-suite positions who have taken a break and yet are now in those positions?
Yes,
There are?
I would say shorter breaks, a couple of years break. And again, I'm going to say this. There are women, there are men as well who've done that.
Okay.
And there are men who've taken a sabbatical to take care of an ailing parent.
Okay.
And they come back into the job market. Usually a year, 2 years break for whatever reasons, whether it is child rearing or it is personal reasons of other kinds. You can find your way back. It's not easy. Very often you have to take a step down and then climb again, but it's possible to do. It's when you take, let's say, a 10-year break, or you say, hey, you know what, now my kids are 18 years old and they're going off to college. Now I'm going to get back to the workplace.
Yeah, obviously.
Then you're starting from scratch.
That's not working.
Then
out.
you're starting from scratch.
Yeah. But it is possible. I mean, there is a ray of hope for working mothers who take a couple of years off and get back into...
But they have to be realistic. In those 2 years, have they kept up with their skills? Have they, have they done simple things like read the newspaper every day and know what's happening? Have they done any kind of additional certification or learning during that time? Have they stayed connected to the corporate world in some form? These are all things that will make it easier for them when they try and come back.
Sure.
And to expect that I will come back at exactly the same level I was at or the same salary I was at may or may not happen. That's something you have to be ready for, that you may have to take a step back and then grow quickly again after that.
So let's talk about how recruitment happens at senior positions.
Okay. We break it up into certain buckets. One is technical skills. So, has the person got the qualification that's required for that job? Has the person got the relevant skills from a technical perspective to do that job? So for example, if you're going to hire a project head and the person doesn't know how a building gets built, it's a little harder.
Of course.
Right? So those, there are lots of such technical skills. Are you going to hire a finance head who doesn't understand the building blocks of finance? Probably not, right? The second will be experiences. So has the person had the kind of experiences you're looking for that job? Now, I'm going to say here, for us at leadership level, everything is about context. What is the context of that job? What is the context of that company? What is the context of that industry, right? You can have two seemingly similar jobs in terms of the same designation, the same industry, but what you're looking for will be completely different based on the context the organization is in, right? So for us, I think the thing we look at much more than even technical skills or experience is, does the person have relevant experience from a contextual perspective? If I'm looking, for example, at an organization which is going through a major transformation, and I bring in a person who ticks all the other boxes, has the right IIT IIM, has worked for the right kind of companies, but has always worked in roles that are about incremental growth, who thinks in the form of broad, make sure everything is steady ship and a little bit of growth.
Linear.
Right? That person is not going to succeed in this job. Right? So in that role, the context is, I need those transformation skills. Very often the person can learn the industry, but having the ability to do a transformation is very different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then within that, there are, specific factors you will look at. You will look at age. The job will have a particular location it's based at. Someone can relocate, someone can't. That becomes a factor. You will look at, has the person got the leadership skills? If it's a front-facing role, does the person have the personality attributes to handle that kind of role? On the other hand, if it is not a front-facing role, do you want to put someone who's a very gregarious, front-facing kind of person into that situation? Will they be happy? You're looking at sometimes industry experience, but not necessarily as much at leadership level. So at leadership level, you will see a lot more cross-industry movements than at the sort of junior or middle level. But you look for transferable skills.
Yeah.
And then there's an X factor. Will the person be able to gel with their bosses, with whoever they're working with in that environment? Are they culturally aligned to the DNA of that organization? You take an organization, let's say you take a very startup environment, right? And you bring someone who's used to a large
Formal organization.
formal organization with structure, systems, processes. The person won't last a week.
Yeah.
Right? They won't know how to deal with it beyond a point. So you have to get that context bang on.
Do you, as a recruiter, have some secret sauce? What is your secret sauce?
If I give away the secret sauce, it won't be secret. So I'm gonna
Broad brush secret sauce.
No, I think if I had to pick one secret sauce, it is context.
Okay.
Every candidate is selling themselves in an interview.
Absolutely.
Right? They're going to put up their best face, their best foot forward. But you have to know enough of their context. A good recruiter will be able to sense where the hesitation is. A good recruiter will know, okay, this stint, something obviously didn't go as well, and will do their checkups on that to figure that information out. But yeah, if you don't get context on both ends, client and candidate end, you're not going to have very successful hires. You'll have hires, but they won't be very successful.
Have you had any misfires?
I'd be lying if I said in 33 years I didn't have any. Do I want to talk about them? No. No, luckily, I mean, I think touchwood, we've had very few, but they do happen.
They happen.
So I'll give you one example.
Yeah.
I won't name anyone.
Yeah, sure.
But we had a situation where we placed a very senior CHRO for an organization where we worked for many years. We'd done checks. We'd done a lot of information gathering. We missed one thing, that the person had a serious medical ailment.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
Now, very hard to pick that up. Yes, there are things that should have been done. So yes, a medical check is part of a process. Normally, for a variety of reasons, it got missed out in this candidate's case. And after the person joined, this ailment got a lot worse and came to the forefront very quickly, and it started impacting work.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Coupled with that, we realized the candidate had actively hidden information around that, which is never a good idea because it does come out at some stage. So yeah, that was a messy situation. The health situation became drastic enough that he had to quit because he literally could not come to office. And he was still on his probation period. So we managed to, make that change and bring in someone else instead. But it did set back the organization because you've made an announcement. There's a senior person who's come on board.
Yeah.
The teams have got aligned accordingly, etc. So it did set back the organization by a bit.
Are there any companies you have said no to?
Oh, lots.
Oh, really?
Lots.
Why?
Lots. There are companies that we either don't agree with their ethical standards, and hence we definitely say no.
Okay.
There are companies that we don't believe will benefit from executive search. A lot of companies want fastest finger first, 3 resumes, 2 days, hire, finish, done, right? We're not that firm. We don't do that kind of work. We're not interested in doing that kind of work. We have companies where sometimes we just believe we are not the right firm to fulfill that role. And we have no qualms in saying no. Our job doesn't really end when you place the person, because if that person doesn't succeed in the job, that company is not going to work with me again.
Yeah.
Right? And if I see companies where there is a lot of hire fire, where there's a lot of change for the sake of change, where people are not too happy, etc., then I know that part of the mandate will not get fulfilled. The person may not be set up for success in those organizations. And then that's our reputation on the line, that, oh, you took your fees, you placed the person, but wo to ek saal mein bhag gaya.
Coming to succession planning, I know that you and your sister and your brother, you have all sort of entered the business that your father set up.
Correct.
Right? So, looking at your own trajectory, is that a normal trajectory for Indian business houses where women step into senior positions and, then get to lead organizations? Does planning happen? One hears many gory stories. That's why I'm asking you this question.
Okay. So, yes and no.
Okay.
There are some families where it is very clear that the women do not enter the family business.
And we shall not name those families over
we're
here.
not naming
Yes.
any particular ones.
Yeah.
But their thinking is not necessarily that the women are less capable in the family. Their thinking, and it's interesting thinking, is that once the woman gets married, she becomes part of another family. And hence, if she is a stakeholder or a shareholder in the family business, the family business ownership gets fragmented. Right? And hence, to solve that issue, they say, you know what? The women, they can join their husband's businesses, but they don't join the family business in any real form. I think we were lucky. My parents I don't think they saw gender. I don't think they factored gender in any of their decision making when we were young. There was nothing I was told I can't do because I'm a girl. It was always understood that as much as I would do things that girls do, I would do things that traditionally men or the boys do.
Amazing.
I should do it because I was good at it.
Yeah.
If I was not good at it or I didn't want to do it, I didn't have to do it.
Right.
Right. My sister, on the other hand, was not sporty. She was much more into the arts, and that was fine as well.
Right.
So, yes, in fact, it was the other way around in my case, where at a certain stage of my life, I had to stop my father and say, hang on. He wanted me to take on a much larger role, which would have entailed a lot more travel and, feet on the ground kind of activity. And I was at a certain age where I had to decide if I wanted to do that or I wanted to have kids because time was ticking. And I had to tell him that, no, you know what? I'm actually not going to take that role because I know I want to have kids. And if I don't do that now, I don't have time. And he was furious. He just could not get it. He was like, what do you mean? Because in his mind, there was no difference between the two. So I think we were blessed that we never dealt with it. We couldn't often understand it initially because we never saw it like that. But then a lot of people around us came from backgrounds where they were not allowed to do anything in the family business. They could do something arty, they could do social work, they could do things like that. Even teach, but certainly not go into the family business. I will also say the family business was one which also was gender neutral in some sense.
Yours, yes.
So, if it was a hardcore factory environment back in the boondocks somewhere with, needing to deal with some of those things, I don't know if I'd want to do it. Not because I'm a girl, but I don't know if I'd be interested.
Yeah.
But the option was always with us. Is it common to have all the siblings in the business? Less and less now. I think a lot of the new generation, I'm talking of the generation after us, a lot of them are going into the family businesses, but then they are diversifying and doing different things within that.
Sure.
So someone will manage the family office, someone will get in the core of the business. If it's a larger group, then there'll be different businesses to run. Or they'll set up something new under the umbrella of the family business. So it's changing. We're seeing a lot more women coming into business.
Because they would also lead the agenda then.
Absolutely.
They would create that environment, hopefully.
Yes. Hopefully, yes.
One of the things that I'm curious about is so many Silicon Valley companies I have hired Indians as CEOs. What is about Indians that they get there? What do you think?
So it's not just Silicon Valley. Now it's a lot of different industries where you have Indians at leadership roles, right? Whether it's consumer, whether it's someone like Lena who, Chanel. Etc. I think India is a very interesting place for talent, and not because we have 1 point whatever billion people. I think Indians have certain inherent strengths. One is for a certain part of India, not all of India, education standards are actually very high. So there are some extremely good schools and even colleges in India which bring about that educational qualification in a large number of people. Two, I think we're an English-speaking population, and that definitely works when you go into a global job anywhere. Three, I think we are by nature very entrepreneurial as people, right? There is that willingness to work hard. There is a willingness to work long hours. There is a willingness to think a little bit outside the box. There is a willingness to treat the organization as if it's your home, which is very inherent to the Indian way of being. There was a lot of flexibility to move outside for opportunities. So if you look at maybe 30 years ago, 25 years ago, there were limited opportunities in India, right? If you were in the corporate world.
Yeah.
So if you really wanted to grow, a lot of people would want that overseas posting,
Yeah.
right? Now, once you move into the global system of an organization, and if you're good at what you do,
Yeah.
right, the chances are you're going to keep growing and
Yeah.
keep moving upwards. You know what? 20 years later, guess what? You're close to the top.
I mean, happily, Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, and whoever, and the
Correct.
most recent, of course, is Kunal Shah.
Yeah.
They are showing that we are capable of something else entirely.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think, India's poised at a very interesting stage. And it has the opportunity to go two routes. What it gets remembered for is in our hands today.
Very, very true.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Toral, thank you so much for this conversation.
My pleasure.
I have learned so much from you in this. And I hope people who are watching, I hope young women who are watching this show see that through your words, see hope for their careers. Right? That's the whole point of this conversation.
And there I'm going to sort of end with a little something that we do as a firm.
Yes, please.
We're very passionate about
Yes.
gender diversity in particular because
Yes.
at the end of the day, we're two women managing partners who set up the
Absolutely.
firm. But a few years ago, 6-7 years ago, we actually got approached by ET Prime, Economic Times Prime Division. And they came to us and they said, we're thinking of doing a leadership award series and we're looking for a partner who can help us with the process. And we said, wonderful, happy to talk. So we said, what are you looking at? And they said, we'll do women's awards. We said, perfect. Now you're talking our language. Let's
Correct.
talk.
Yes.
We're going to have Businesswoman of the Year. We're going to have Woman CEO of the Year. And we're going to have, I think it was International Woman of the Year or something. Indian International NRI Woman of the Year. And we looked at them and we said, we're not doing it.
Oh, okay.
And they were like, what?
Why?
Why? And we said, because this is same old, right? You're going to have 10 people that will circulate in your list over 10 years and you're done. There's nothing, no value add we can provide. But this is not necessarily going to be inspirational. This is just going to be another set of awards. So they said, well, what do you recommend? And we actually said, give us a day or two. Thought about it. We went back to them and we said, instead of doing just the 3 big awards, why don't you look at doing CMO of the Year, Woman CMO of the Year, Woman CFO of the Year, Woman Technology Leader of the Year, etc., etc.
Brilliant.
And what that does is it becomes a little closer to people, to women who are looking for that inspiration.
Yes.
It becomes a little more real
Yeah.
because the Woman CEO of the Year is too far away.
Too far away.
They're not going to be able to even think of aspiring
Yeah.
to that just
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Whereas this is something that is people that have gone through similar journeys and that perhaps they can look at and get inspired by. And they said, oh, this is interesting, wonderful, we love it. So great, we'll do Woman CHRO, Woman CMO of the Year, Woman PR and Communications of the Year. And we said, okay, what about the rest? They said, oh, those we won't get enough women.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
and we said, no, that's actually the problem. You need to shine the spotlight on women for other women to get
Who are
inspired.
there? Who are
right?
actually there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they said, okay. We went back to them with a list of 200 women CTOs.
Fantastic.
Right? And then they were
Fantastic.
struggling
That's
with
brilliant.
who do we pick
That's
out of this because they're
brilliant.
all
Yes.
wonderful stories.
Yes.
And we've done this now for 6 editions.
Excellent.
And found every year we find more and more and
there
more.
you go.
So they
There you
exist.
go.
They exist.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a question of giving them that little bit of limelight.
Yeah.
Putting them out there for others to see and get inspired
Absolutely.
by. And
Create a sort of feeling of a cohort.
Absolutely.
viable cohort.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah,
Fantastic.
I think for all the women out there,
Yes.
there are women who have made it through the tough years, who have made it through all the issues that each one of us have faced to get to where we are.
Yeah.
Learn from them, read their stories, hear about them, follow them, and
Watch Beyond
Try.
Pink.
watch Beyond Pink, and you will get inspired to get through that.
Truly,
Yeah.
truly. Thanks for this, Doral. Hello and namaste. I hope you've been watching these conversations that I have brought to you with some very remarkable women in our country. The conversations, as you know, are about anything and everything that matters to a woman, and then, of course, by corollary, to society. If you are enjoying these conversations, do please like, share, subscribe so that others in your circle can also enjoy them. Thank you. Keep watching.